Again, I'm with Brad. Ash, I'm going to throw to you again, Brad.
That's all right, the National Motor Racing Museum at Bathurst.
That's the one. That's the one. And I'm in probably there's a wreck over there. The wreck it looks fairly recent, from a V8 supercar, but this is probably the second worst condition car here. But there's a good reason why this is in such bad nick, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the winning car from the 1979 Round Australia Repco Trial.
And I see it's got 05 on the side, so Peter Brock?
Absolutely, yep.
So he won that. Now, back in the day, in the 60s, there were Redex reliability trials, and Ampol ran them as well.
Yeah, that's right. So the Redex trials were from 1953, and then the Ampol trials, and a variety of other important kind of off-road events. But this 79 race was it was one of the toughest events that's ever been held in the country.
So around Australia, completely around Australia?
Absolutely. It was a full lap, so it was well over 10,000 kilometres.
Well, we've just done 6,000 in the Wang, and we drove across the top of Northern Australia from, Joey, where did we go? From Cairns across to Normanton, and that was enough for us. Once we'd lost the windscreen, we decided to start heading south via Mount Isa. So he drove this. He must have had a co-driver of some sort, because I can see there's some sort of control panel for the passenger. Yeah,
it was a crew of three in this car. But it was an amazingly hard race. The organisers had designed it so the roads they were using were rough and hard and destroying cars.
Okay, and this looks like it was partially destroyed, but it's held up reasonably well. So they knew how to build cars in those days. I've always thought the HQ was probably the best put together Holden around, but the VB Commodore obviously could handle the tough stuff as well. They must have prepared it somewhat. I can see it's got bonnet scoops on that. It's obviously to get extra air in there. Yeah,
look, the Holden team really went out with their three cars to try and win the event, and they did a lot of preparation work, a lot of reconnaissance. They had a lot of mechanical backup on the run. They had aircraft and support vehicles as well, so it was a very professionally run effort. Having said that, there was a lot of competition to win as well, so it wasn't just a whitewash by Holden. Having said that, the Commodores really went out of the gate very quickly and held the lead all the way around, and then it was remarkable, really. Brock won Bathurst in the same year, and he always said that this was one of his most significant victories of his career.
And was that race held after Bathurst or prior?
That one was, now you've put me on the spot there. I believe it was actually prior to the Bathurst event.
So, you would hope that he had a little bit of time to recover, because it would have taken a lot out of you, even though he had. So obviously, driver, well, what would you call it? Navigator, really, yep. And then the
relief driver.
Relief driver sitting in the back. And I said the other side of the seat, there's nothing there. What's in the back there that I can't quite make out?
Spare tyres and all of the other gear they needed. They had to carry a lot of their own stuff in the car. So I think the theory was that the guy in the back would have a bit of a slope, and they just rotate through the three drivers to push through, because there were just sort of no overnight rest stops in a comfy 5-star motel. It was press on.
Okay, and so you just nestle up against the spare tyres, and that was your sleep 6 hours or whatever you got before you were put in the driver's seat again?
Yeah, something like that, and over rough, hard roads and things like that. It wouldn't have been the most comfortable way to spend a couple of weeks.
It would have been bloody awful. Now, having travelled up there myself, I can vouch for the number of dead kangaroos and wildlife there up there. In fact, we saw a boar that was the bloody biggest pig I think I've ever seen. They've got this would have been mandatory to have a bull bar like this.
Look, I don't think it was mandatory, but certainly a very clever piece of preparation. And from what I recall, this car had a bit of an incident one night and actually just about tipped up on the bull bar as it was running along. So, it wasn't just the wildlife. It was, driver error and things like that. Yeah. It was handy to have something to keep the mechanicals all intact at the front. Yeah.
Bonnet tie downs, and this is in a region. When did the museum happen across this one?
Well, this one's actually owned by Holden Motorsport, so this one's on loan. It's not always going to be here, but Holden have owned the car basically ever since 1979. So it just rotates around. Okay. It's been used for a variety of different things over the years, but it's a museum exhibit.
Yeah, it looks great. But if we just take a couple of steps backwards, we come to a Wolseley. I thought it was Wolseley 2480. Now, Wolseley famously have their mark or their motif light up when you drive them. Does that one still work?
Look, I've got no idea. This is a privately owned car on loan, but it actually ran the Peking to Paris race or rally in 1997. So, another good, strong, long-distance car.
Wolseley are a favourite of mine. Really, really good cars, and it's interestingly got a tow bar at the front. So I don't quite know what that's for, but we're going to take a few more steps back, and we're going to come to something that I think I know something about. I don't know a lot, Brad, but I think this one ran from Darwin to Adelaide. and it was built by, well, it says TAFE Sydney Institute, and I think it was put together by TAFE students or university students, and they ran it down the guts of Australia. Is that right?
Yeah, this was one of the cars that was used in the Solar Challenge from Darwin to Adelaide, and this is the University of New South Wales team car from an earlier event. They have another car that they've built now, so this one's now living in the museum for the time being.
Okay, and so some poor sucker would have to sit. I can imagine that would be blistering hot, and I doubt any air conditioning in there.
Oh, that's right. You know, I think the problem with having an air conditioning is you need an air intake, and that's drag. And when you've got very little power and you want to go for maximum efficiency, it's got to be sealed. So they would have found some very small, probably first-year university student that was keen to sit in there and strap them in at the start of the race.
I don't think it's politically correct to say the word midget these days. I know maybe it is, but yeah, it's somebody very, very small. Is it running on bicycle wheels? It's hard to tell. They're all enclosed, I guess, again, so it can cut through the air easily, but they must be tiny wheels under there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all, you know, superbly engineered for maximum efficiency, so it's high pressure tyres. I think actually they are a specific race tyre design for this sort of racing, and yeah, it's a pretty amazing piece of equipment.
It is. Well, Brad, thanks for showing us around the museum. Just behind us, I should also mention one of the first EH Holdens had the 179 motor in it, and that Holden put that engine in really for Bathurst, didn't they?
Yeah. So the car on display at the moment, it's an S4, so it's one of the first Bathurst specials that Holden had ever built.
And so really, the S4 really just meant they put better carbies on it, didn't it?
Oh, look, it was a little bit tickled up in other areas as well. It had a long-range fuel tank and a few other things, but
mild cam, I think.
Yeah, very, very mild by sort of later standards, you know.
Yeah. Okay, well, terrific, Brad. Thanks again. We're going to go out and check out your 220 SE Mercedes. Let's go.